What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim, and yes, you read the name of this video correctly. I am giving my final review to a Skyrim DLC which launched back in 2012 on the Xbox 360 and in early 2013 on the PlayStation 3, and I'm talking about Dawnguard. Now, I picked up the Elder Scrolls Ultimate Edition a couple weeks ago on the PlayStation sale, and I have been having an absolute blast with it. I've done some videos talking about Skyrim in the past, long time ago, but I have been enjoying Skyrim a lot lately. I found personally that it runs significantly better on my PlayStation 4 base than on my PlayStation 4 Pro, and as a result, that's where I've been spending most of my time. And rather than getting into the main story of the main full-fledged Skyrim, I decided to focus on Dawnguard as soon as I hit a good enough level to do so, and I absolutely loved it. This is how DLC should be made, and if nothing else, let this video serve as a reminder that at one point in time, game companies gave you a significant bang for your buck with DLC. Now, this cost $20 back when it came out, way back, almost 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. Very different time back then. DLC was definitely not as widely understood or appreciated. It was something that a lot of people felt, you know, you bought the base game, why should you buy more? Very different than today's standards where DLC is prominently featured even before a game is launched sometimes. So what makes Dawnguard so good is that it adds a lot to the base game. And first I'm going to focus on the story aspect of it. I thought this story was incredibly detailed. It had a lot of lore to it if you care about that. If you don't, you're still going to find some major connections with a lot of the new characters that are added. And you're going to be able to really shape this part of the story definitely by some key choices you make early on in the game, which does lend itself, one, to replayability, but two, to a real sense of ownership after finishing the story, that you were definitely a pivotal part of it. A lot of times in these RPGs, I feel like you're just an over-glorified messenger. In this story, I felt like in particular, you definitely had a very important role to play. So it really all stems around this group called the Dawnguard. And the thing that I was slightly annoyed with through this entire journey was that they have this really cool keep, but it never really gets updated. It's very clearly abandoned and slowly being rebuilt by the gang over there. It's covered in cobwebs, a lot of it's empty, part of it's dilapidated and all in rubble. You can't even access part of it. It just doesn't look like a very welcoming place, not like some of the other establishments that you'll frequent inside of Skyrim. And unfortunately, as you build up the story and you do recruit more members to the Dawnguard, you never really seem to kind of build up the castle, which I thought was a major oversight. Because I think this game pushed the boundaries of what the Skyrim engine could do. It really did... I think it really did kind of, you know, it pushed boundaries in certain places, but here it just felt like it was overlooked. And I'm not really sure why that was. I mean, you know, you think when you fight dragons in the original Skyrim, you know, they're flying around, they land down in front of you. You swing a sword at a bunch of times, they die. It's still epic, but it's not as cool as in this one when you're walking across a frozen lake and they bust out of the ice from below you and they start shooting fire. They dive back down into the ice, reappear in other places. So that's what I mean, that I feel like they've taken the combat to a much better level. They didn't really do that with the actual castle building. But I don't want to go off too much on a tangent on that. I just want to say that you basically are building up this group of the Dawnguard to go off and fight. And it takes place over 22 quests to build up this group, to figure out what's going on, and the pivotal point of the DLC, by far the coolest point, is Serana. Now, Serana is actually really cool. The way she's introduced is actually really cool. And you basically find out that she is a pure-blood vampire who's kind of been frozen in time, awaiting this ritual. You open up this, basically you're going through a quest, one of the early quests, and you open up this tomb and she just plops out and she wakes up and she's like, hello. and she's got these bright red vampire eyes. She turns out to be an insanely unstoppable force. Definitely the coolest ally in this game by far. And I don't mean just this DLC. I mean just Skyrim, just in general. She is really fun to play with. Partially because I feel like they did a really good job of kind of giving her much more personality than some of the other companions you have. She interacts with things when you're walking around the town. Because she's a vampire, when you're out during the day, she'll pull her hood over her face and she kind of lowers her head down. If you're talking to another vendor, sometimes she'll go off and she'll go sit in a chair, or she'll go work on the alchemy station, or she'll go sharpen her dagger on the grindstone. She makes a lot of comments about things, about the weather, about the time of day, about what are you doing, about what you're carrying, what you're wearing, what you're eating. They really programmed her, and I think this was a major step forward in this whole Skyrim engine, really, to give a character so much personality that she really did feel much more like a really good companion than just an AI kind of meat bag that we normally play with. A lot of the companions that you have, they just kind of go off into battle. Here, hold this because I don't have enough room to hold things. But I felt like with her and so much interaction with her throughout the story, it really did make her a very cool character and somebody I was interested about. Another really cool thing they did with this DLC, particularly with her, is the amount of conversations you can have with her after almost every single major mission. And depending on how you react to her and depending on what you do, she will grow to like you more or less and reveal more about herself. And you could definitely play where she's very cold and distant, or in my case, she was very warm and welcoming at the end, saying, I want to stay with you and continue fighting outside, and I want to have more adventures, even going so far as to curing herself of vampirism, which was really, really cool. Fortunately, you didn't get to see that happen, but getting her to persuade her to do that after, such a long time of her having that was extremely, extremely rewarding. And I really, really like that. So I think if nothing else, that really kind of solidified how amazing this DLC was for me. The other really cool thing is you're going to go off in a couple areas you haven't been before. And I know that this is standard with DLC, where you're going to go off to an area that you haven't been, and you're going to get to explore some ancient ruins or some mythical land. This has a few of those as well. They did a really cool spin on one where you go to this kind of shadow realm where it's almost like a purgatory. It's not like your standard mountain landscape, although they do have one of those later on in the Forgotten Vale, which is really, really neat because you finally get to meet a snow elf, which really is the last of their kind. And it has this whole little contained area to explore with secrets and dungeons and everything that allow you to go off and explore. Or you could just do the golden path and just run straight through to the big bad and do what you need to do. The other really cool thing that this DLC does is it adds 2 really awesome new pieces of gear. The crossbow is one that I'm not going to mention. I know I said 2, so let me reframe that. 3. Crossbow is a new bow and arrow type weapon. It works with your standard archery tree. It hits a lot harder than a bow, but it's a lot slower to reload. But the 2 I was specifically referring to was AURIEL'S equipment. You get AURIEL'S bow, which is a major quest item, and then as an optional aside item, if you do a little bit of exploration, you can pick up AURIEL'S shield. Now, Auriel has a significant role in this DLC, particularly with what the villain is trying to do, and particularly with kind of what that role is between them. But I don't want to get into that part. I want to talk about how cool these weapons are. Auriel'S bow, when you shoot an arrow, it explodes into a beam of light. It's a really cool special effect, even for PlayStation 3 graphics. It's a really, really cool effect. But it's just neat because you're finally starting to get these very mythical weapons. A lot of times in these games, you're going to find a glass knife or a glass dagger rather. And what's going to make it cool is that you're putting some sort of enchantment on it, whether it's, fortify this or fortify sneak, whatever. You're going to be customizing stuff on your own. And occasionally you will find a legendary piece of gear. You find one very, very on with the companions with Wuthering, the two-handed big battle axe. But really when it comes down to it, there's not a lot of stuff that really is over the top, amazing, with some really crazy stat or some crazy perk that you haven't seen. Think along the lines of like a legendary item in like Diablo, or like a big, something that you would drop and you would just be like, oh my God, I can't believe I earned this. And I feel to me, Auriel'S bow is that. But for somebody who plays with sword and board, definitely Auriel'S shield is my new main shield. And it is a really, really cool shield. What it allows you to do is you basically absorb energy from people when you block. And then when you do a shield bash, you basically do a free dragon shout, which is the unrelenting force, the Fus Roda. So you're getting block. The shield starts glowing. It starts flaming, and then you release it, and it just channels a very powerful blast of energy. And that is just really, really neat. The DLC culminates with an epic battle, which in my eyes, in my opinion, as I've started to play Elder Scrolls Online, and I'm sure Phil and I are going to talk a lot about that here next week. What really culminates in Elder Scrolls to me is this battle where you are now sided with the Dawnguard and you're rushing up the castle to fight the evil Lord Harkon. And you have all of these people that you've built up around you. You've done quests for them. You get to know them. You have Serena with you, and you're storming up these castle gates, and the enemy's rolling down. And it's probably the closest like Civil War or major battle you're going to get in this game. It's just a real treat to play out. It is so much fun as spells are being cast, allies are dying, villains are dying. It's just a total bloodbath. It really does sell kind of the finale of this expansion, and it was really, really a treat to play. I can't help but think that somebody at Bethesda saw that and said, wouldn't it be cool if, and I feel like that was the genesis of Elder Scrolls Online. I could be totally wrong, but in my eyes and in my opinion, that was definitely kind of the initial idea, because I haven't seen anything like that to date. And I'm not even talking about like when a dragon lands in town and you have all the guards running out and shooting bows and arrows at it. I'm talking about just two groups of people who absolutely hate each other running down, probably maybe 15 or 20 people on screen, all fighting at once with mythical beasts, gargoyles, demon dogs, summons going off like crazy, Atronox everywhere. Really, really fun. In case you couldn't tell, I was a huge fan of this expansion, and I felt like, I know it's a billion years late, but I loved it so much, and I had such a blast playing through it. It really did rekindle my love for Skyrim in many, many ways. But it was such a phenomenal story, got some really cool pieces of gear, got some really cool set battles, and really cool set environments to check out. It really was a great piece of DLC. And I know that a lot of people probably got burnt out on Skyrim, especially if you were like me when you got it for PlayStation 3 and they had that horrendous bug which basically bricked your game. You had to start over. And I have had a few times of restarting with Skyrim and buying the game multiple times. I don't know what it is about this particular playthrough, but I am absolutely hooked on this game, and I just wanted to express my love for how cool this was. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully maybe it makes you want to go back and check it out one more time for yourself, or dive back into Skyrim, or maybe into Elder Scrolls Online, because it's going to be a long time before we get a new one. So there's no sense in waiting, and for nothing, you might as well jump back in and enjoy some of the amazing gameplay that Bethesda put out so long ago. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.